Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
One day in his wife's purse, a husband saw something that shocked him. Today's story has a similar plot. Enjoy watching it. So I search my wife's purse for her car keys so I can move her car, get mine out of the garage, and get to work. Well, I can tell you that when I was digging through that backpack she called a purse, it had everything in it except the gun and the stun gun. I came across things that were just amazing. You want to know why I'm telling you this? Well, I have a good reason. You see, the most surprising thing in this bulky bag was the unopened box of pregnancy protection products. Yes. So I pulled the box out of her purse and had to sit up before I passed out and fell and hurt myself. I felt dizzy, and the room began to tilt. Why is this in my wife's purse? Perhaps there is a reasonable explanation for them, but at that very moment, I could not think of one. The children made the usual noises as they gathered their things and prepared to head to school. I was almost ready to go to work, and Laura was bustling around, also getting ready for her office. When she saw me sitting at the kitchen table and what I was holding in my hands, she froze, but only for a moment. She walked over, took the box from my hand, put it back in her purse, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Have a nice day, sweetie. Don't forget you're barbecuing tonight." With these words, she took her purse and jacket and walked out the door. The kids, Andy and Gracie, poked their heads around the corner. "We're ready to go, Dad," and then headed into the garage. What happened next? I managed to drop my kids off at school without crashing my car or running over anyone, but let me tell you, I didn't remember any of it. Even when I walked into my tiny office, I passed people wishing me good morning, but I couldn't remember who they were. There I was, sitting in my office, looking out the window, trying to remember what had just happened at my house that morning. Did I dream this? I mean, did it really happen? What the hell actually happened? Why does my wife have these things in her purse? My mind raced from one thought to another, and of course, I went to the worst scenario imaginable. The main idea I had was that she was having an affair with some guy. Was she going to leave us? Did she want a divorce? Did she want to take my children away from me? I started to feel out of breath just sitting at the table as the enormity of it all struck me. I had to sit for a while with my head between my knees, trying not to lose consciousness. I sat there until there was a knock on the door and a head appeared from behind it. Someone wanted to know if I was going to have coffee at the shop on the ground floor. I went. The day went badly. When I returned home, I realized that the expression on my face was as if I had just witnessed a giant train wreck. I know I was pale, my legs felt like rubber, I think my blood pressure definitely increased, and I had some tightness in my chest. I saw the children sitting on the kitchen island, working on something, probably homework. Laura was in the kitchen preparing food. She looked at me, came over, kissed me on the lips, and said, "Don't forget, you're grilling hamburgers. Go change." And with these words, she returned to her efforts. It was as if nothing had happened that morning. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what else to do, so without saying a word, I went into the bedroom to take off my suit. It was really strange when I walked into the bedroom, I felt like I expected there to be another man there. Before entering the room, I slowly looked around the corner of the door. Nothing. I slowly opened the closet door, expecting someone to be hiding there, ready to jump out at me. Nothing there either. There were also no uninvited guests or strangers in the bathroom. My paranoia reached its peak. I quickly took a shower and thought about a million things the whole time. Nothing made sense to me. I had no real evidence that anything was going on with Laura outside of our marriage. I mean, there could be a perfectly acceptable reason why she would do this. I decided it was best to let her tell me at her convenience. It might take a while, but I decided that eventually I would find out. And then it would be time to do something about it, whatever it is. I put on jeans and a t-shirt, went downstairs, chatted with the kids, and continued cooking hamburgers for dinner. But I'm not done trying to figure out if there's a fly in the ointment, not at all. So when I go to bed, I usually don't wear pajamas or even boxers. Yes, I sleep commando. It's much more convenient for me. I'm surprised more people don't do this. But since we have 2 small children, I keep a few pajama pants in the bottom drawer of my nightstand so they can be quickly used in case the kids barge into our bedroom. I can pull them out and up my leg while still under the covers. It's really easy to do. That night, I lay in bed and tried to read for a few minutes before falling asleep. Laura was in bed too, but she usually wears a long t-shirt that she can easily get up in, whether to go to the bathroom or handle something else, depending on the need or urgency. She says she's a bit more modest in that regard than I am. After putting the book down and turning off the light, I rolled over to her and said my usual, "Good night. I love you." She typically responds by saying, "I love you," then gets comfortable and falls asleep. I didn't sleep much that night, and wouldn't for a few more days. A few months later, I finally found some rest, dreaming of someone who was very happy. Laura and I have a great relationship, but every now and then, in those really quiet moments when I'm alone, I still remember that morning when I found something in her purse. I've tried my best to forget it, but it never seems to leave me completely. I did some research online, and after reading about 1,000,000 telltale signs that wives who have affairs exhibit, I was convinced that Laura wasn't one of them. Besides, it was months ago, and she had plenty of time to come up with a very compelling reason why she needed that item. I looked for some of those telltale signs the internet warned me about, and I have to tell you, Laura didn't have any of them. So why am I still thinking about this? Because I'm a man and a husband, yeah. A few more months later, that little doubt keeps gnawing at part of my brain. You've all heard that song that keeps playing in your head and won't go away. It's called an earworm. Well, I have such a worm, but it's not a song. It's an image. I need to know. I have to get this out of my head and out of my way. I have to do something about this. It makes me doubt myself. I've been taking longer showers in the evenings before bed and in the mornings when I get up and go for my regular run. I spend more time, run further, and faster. I try to control my emotions, my frustration, but I don't know who or what to be frustrated with, or why. I need help, but what helps? How do I get rid of this damn earworm in my head? A few more months passed. It's been a year since I found that thing in Laura's bag. The only significant change during this time was that we all became a year older. I received a small promotion at work, my salary increased by 20%, and my annual bonus is now a slightly larger percentage of my base salary. The children moved up to the next grade and continued to be children, with a few new classes added to their schedule. Laura stayed the same as always, same job, but a little more money. We do a lot as a family, and Laura and I try to spend time together and go out. We're doing well financially, the kids are fine, everything is fine. But there's still that tiny thing that keeps bothering me. It comes to my mind less and less, but it hasn't completely gone away. Why won't it leave? In the back of my mind, I know I'll need to do something about it, but when? My personal life is going great. Laura and I used to be intimate a couple of times a week, but in recent months, I've increased the schedule to 3. I don't plan on making any changes or rocking the boat. The children are still young, and making a drastic change in our family situation would be harmful to them. No, I'll stay the course as long as I can. If Laura says she wants to leave, then I will do everything to ensure my children are under my care. Yes, if she wants to leave, she will lose. A few more months passed, and the earworm won the tug of war. So, I called a detective agency. I went into their office and spoke with a woman who didn't look like what I imagined an investigator would. She was stunning, no older than 35, and to be honest, I didn't think she could help me. My prejudices and misconceptions got in the way, and I think I expected to see someone like Frank Cannon, who would mix bourbon with cigars and look shabby. What I got was more of a Charlie's Angels kind of thing. We talked at length about my concerns and what information I would like to get for my money. I wrote down a lot of details about Laura, where we live, where she works, the make, model, and number of her car, her cell phone number, and, of course, gave her the most recent photo I had on my phone. I left a deposit, and after a few questions, I left. Ms. Wolfenstein said she'd call me in a week with an update, and we would discuss what happens next. I left her office wondering if I was doing the right thing. Would knowing be better or worse? If Laura is involved with another man, can I look past it for the sake of my family? That was the big, $1,000,000 question, and I had no idea how to answer it. 2 weeks later, I received a call at the office from Ms. Wolfenstein. She said she had a preliminary report for me and wanted me to come to her office to go over what she'd found. Then I could decide whether to stop the investigation or continue, so I went. This was not good. I walked into her office, and she offered me a bottle of water, which I took, opened, and drank. I knew from the look on her face that the news she was about to tell me was not going to be good. She started, "It turns out that Laura is involved with a man a little younger than her. His name is Trayvon Williams, and he is single. I have a photo of him with Laura, they are holding hands. Crap. Laura and I are both 35 years old, and her lover is about 25. He is tall, handsome, very fit, and black. He's not black, but he is black in the sense that he has a close white relative in his family." My mind was spinning in circles, and I knew I hadn't heard much of what she was saying. I looked at the table and didn't remember what was said after I saw the photo of my wife holding hands with another man. Miss Wolfenstein stopped talking, but I didn't know when. She sat and looked at me, and I could only sit with my mouth open, staring at the table. "Mr. Brady? Mr. Brady, are you okay?" I didn't answer. "Mr. Brady, please drink some water." "What?" "Please drink some water, Mr. Brady." I looked at the bottle as if I didn't know how it ended up in my hand. I took a sip, then another, and another. I emptied the bottle, and then things got even worse. A trash can appeared in front of my face, and of course, the contents of my stomach decided to rise powerfully. I threw up everything, and it didn't feel good. As the cramping subsided, I sat down in a chair, and the realization that Laura was cheating began to sink in. Now, what should I do? After the great revelation of Laura's lover in Miss Wolfenstein's office, I struggled back to my office and closed the door. A couple of things had to happen. It turns out that Miss Wolfenstein is married to a lawyer who handles divorce cases. She gave me his business card and said he would call me, and I could talk to him about options. Options? What the hell are the options? He actually called, and quite quickly. His name is Jordan Walters, a local guy who practices many different types of law, including family law. I checked online, and he has a very good reputation. He wins for his clients. So I went to him. Well, that was damn informative. After an hour of talking with Mr. Walters, it became clear that if I decided to take any action against Laura, the result would likely be that I would get thrown out by the New York State Family Court. It turns out that New York family courts generally believe that only the mother can take care of the children, a very outdated idea, if you ask me, and that fathers are left paying for everything else the family might have had if they stayed together. Yes, I understand that family courts often deal with fathers who try to avoid paying child support, and they have a duty to protect children from such irresponsible fathers. But in cases where the father is responsible, capable, and willing to care for his children, the court should take this into account and treat both fathers and mothers fairly. Mothers aren't always squeaky clean either. Some women aren't meant to be mothers, and in such cases, the father is a logical alternative to prevent children from suffering. Courts see many examples of mothers with addictions, mental health problems, and other conditions that indicate the children would be better off with their father. The saddest cases are those where neither parent is fit to raise the children, and they end up with grandparents or in the foster care system. This sucks. You won't believe the advice my new lawyer gave me. I still don't believe it. Jordan and I discussed in detail what was important to me in my marriage to Laura and what my priorities were with the children. I started telling Jordan what I wanted to do now that I knew Laura was unfaithful. I wanted to divorce her, simple and clear. I wanted her to leave and not come near me or the children. I wanted to keep the house, the kids, and for her to pay some child support. Jordan looked at me with an expression that said I had my head in the clouds. I think I might have set my expectations too high, but damn it, I'm not the one having an affair. Will the family court punish me, the injured party? It turns out that it very well can. At the end of our discussion and his recommendations, I left and walked part of the way back to my office. I stopped to grab a much-needed cup of coffee at Starbucks and sat looking out the window, watching people pass by. I thought about what Jordan advised me. He apologized for what he recommended, but said he had seen too many clients make hasty decisions in the heat of anger and live to regret them. He left me with 2 pieces of advice: don't do anything stupid, and don't do anything yet. The first part was pretty simple. If I did anything to get back at the guy Laura is having a night with, I would probably end up in jail, and then anything I wanted from family court would be immediately rejected. No judge would grant me custody of my children with an assault charge and a criminal record. Moreover, it would affect my career and ruin my life in general. Losing your head and doing something stupid would be a mistake. Besides, it's just not in my nature. The second part of Jordan's advice was much harder: do nothing. Can I sit back and do nothing? Should I let Laura enjoy her romance, or should I try to push her out the door? I really wanted to do the latter. There must be consequences for what she's doing. But Jordan warned me that this was a long-term game, and I needed to be patient if I wanted to succeed. I'm not sure I have that much patience. When I returned home, armed with new knowledge and wise legal advice, I looked at Laura, and she was the same as always. The children were busy with their own affairs. I didn't say much to anyone, but I changed my clothes and grabbed a beer from the fridge. Laura looked at me and said, "Don't get carried away with beer, we have football tonight." I put the unopened bottle back in the refrigerator. We had a quick dinner, and then we all piled into the car and drove to the football field. Everything felt so normal. Time was passing. Friday night, I returned home around 5, as usual, and was greeted by the kids watching TV in the living room and Laura sitting at the kitchen table. She hadn't changed out of her work clothes and was looking at her tablet, with a glass of wine next to her. She looked at me as I walked into the kitchen. "You're home. Okay, grab a drink and sit with me." "Okay." That was a little unusual. Something was wrong. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, making me feel anxious. Something was happening. What exactly? Maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's something. It's time to find out. I'll go change clothes first, then grab a beer. I'll be back soon. Laura returned to watching her tablet very carefully. I went into our bedroom, took off my suit and tie, and put on jeans and a long-sleeve t-shirt. I always keep a small supply of my favorite IPA beers on hand and usually have 1 or 2 in the fridge in the garage. I went to the garage, took a beer, poured it into a glass, and went to the kitchen. I pulled out a chair and sat down. "So, what's on your mind, Laura?" I need it from Trey, but I try to keep this desire in perspective. My family comes first. My children and my husband are important, and I try to make sure their needs and my needs for Trey don't overlap. At least, that's my intention. I work carefully to keep these 2 worlds far apart, but there is always a risk that something could go wrong, and I must be ready to manage the situation. I only meet Trey at his apartment, and only during the day. We work at the same bank, but we don't communicate and never correspond there. There was one small incident a year ago when Rob found a box in my bag and looked very confused as to why I had it. I took it from his hands, put it back in my bag, and started talking to him about our dinner plans for that evening. He was grilling hamburgers. The time during which the box was in his hands was a matter of seconds. If he had had time to ask about it, I would have said it was a joke gift for one of the women in the office who has a new boyfriend. The part about the new boyfriend was true, so to be on the safe side, I bought a second box, gave it to the woman over coffee the next day, and left my original box on my desk to take back to Trey's apartment. Trey is 6 feet 3 inches and all muscle. He has a lean swimmer's body and 6-pack abs. He is very handsome and very confident. His manners and style attracted me when I met him. Trey is well educated and comes from a good family. The problem with Trey is that he loves intim. My big problem is Rob and the kids. As time passes, I quietly make plans in case Laura ever announces that she is leaving us to live with her boyfriend, Trayvon Williams. The first step was simple: start planning for the future of the children and myself. It meant thinking about money, how to handle it, and how to make sure the kids and I wouldn't suffer financially because of Laura's new stage of life with her new boyfriend. My new best friend, Jordan, suggested I meet with a financial advisor who could help me arrange things so that a significant portion of my assets remained under my control. It all sounded a little shady, but it was actually completely legal. He opened trust accounts for the children, where I was the sole controller of the funds. The idea was to provide for their education after school as well as for other needs. I quietly transferred my annual bonus to these accounts. The money was invested in blue-chip stocks and bonds that paid dividends, and the dividends were automatically reinvested in additional shares. Over time, the amount in these trust accounts would slowly grow. I looked at our joint credit account balance and lowered the maximum spending limit on the card. I told Laura that this was for security in case the card was stolen or hacked, to limit our liability. She agreed that it was a good idea. She is a banker, after all. I took inventory of the essential items in our home, telling Laura I was looking for the best deal on insurance, but that the company I was considering needed to know what valuable items we had. I needed to be prepared for the day Laura announces she's leaving me and the kids for her boyfriend. I wanted to make sure the divorce would be as painless as possible for me and the children, but I know it's never like that. Jordan confirmed this. Laura, Trey wants me to spend the weekend with him. How can I do it? I need to come up with some kind of story for Rob, but what could it be? I've been thinking through different scenarios in my head, but I can't find one that would allow me to be away from home on the weekend without Rob finding out I'm lying. My family won't help, they all live nearby. My job won't help either, bankers rarely have weekend meetings, at least not at my bank. My friends won't do, they all know Rob, and I'm certain they'll eventually spill the secret, and then my game will be over. I told Trey we should limit ourselves to a couple of hours at lunchtime, but he wants more. He also says he wants me to be his official girlfriend and for us to be seen together in public. That's not going to happen, but damn, it feels so good, and I still want it. I need to think of something. A few weeks ago, I was going to tell Rob that I wanted to go out on a date with a friend. At the last moment, I got scared and didn't do it, and I did the right thing. But Trey wants more time with me, or he's threatening to leave. He says he needs a girl he can spend time with. He says he enjoys being with me, but a few hours a week isn't enough. He needs more. I want to keep what I have, but I don't want to risk Rob finding out. A little more time with Trey would be nice, but I have to find a way to do it without risking my family. Time is ticking, and Trey wants me to spend next weekend with him. He's having a gathering with some friends and wants me to be there as his girlfriend. If I don't agree, I can say goodbye to him. It's not that Rob doesn't satisfy me, but Trey just does it better. So, what should I do? I'll have to take a risk. Wish me luck. Today is Thursday, and I just got back from work. I need to get changed, relax a little, and then help prepare dinner and play with the kids. I see Laura sitting at the dining table with her tablet, looking very serious. Laura, Rob, honey, why don't you grab a beer? I want to talk to you about something important that you need to know. Damn it. Okay, here it is. I didn't think it would happen now, but I guess now is the time. Rob, I'll change my clothes first, and then I'll grab a beer. I went to our bedroom, took off my suit, and took a long shower to wash off the day and prepare myself for what I thought was about to happen. I was actually nervous, knowing today would change the dynamics of our marriage, our family, our lives. Everything I've worked for is about to change. I held my breath and reminded myself to let it out. It's time to start this show. When I returned to the kitchen, I noticed Laura was clearly nervous. She raised her glass of wine, and I noticed her hand shaking slightly. Something big was definitely coming. I went to the refrigerator, grabbed a can of my favorite IPA, found my glass, and poured the beer. After a sip, I sat down at the table. So, what's on your mind, honey? Honey, I want to talk about something that may upset you, but I'll say right away that I love you very much. Why do you need to remind me of that now? I frowned. Obviously, what you're about to tell me might make me doubt the love you're speaking of. Just tell me. Laura flinched slightly at my statement, looking intently at her glass of wine. A friend asked me to accompany him to an event, and I told him I would go. It's just dinner. He's meeting some friends from school, and he doesn't have anyone to go with. Everyone else will be with dates, and he doesn't want to feel weird about it. I told him I'd talk to you. Okay, let me get this straight. This young man can't find a date, so he asks a married woman to be his? Don't you find that strange? He's very sweet, and I think a little shy. He's a good person. I'd like to do him this favor. So, a very nice young man, who's shy and can't find a date, wants you to go with him, pretending to be his girlfriend. Did I get that right? Not exactly as his girlfriend, just as a friend. Wait, so he's going to show up to a party with a beautiful woman, and he's not going to say she's his girlfriend? Come on, be realistic. Laura stared intently at her glass. I continued, do you remember when we first started dating? You couldn't wait to introduce me to everyone as your boyfriend. You even called your parents to tell them we were officially dating. I took another sip of beer. Does Trayvon consider you his girlfriend? Is he going to introduce you as such? Maybe we should call him to clear things up. At the mention of Trayvon's name, Laura's head shot up, her expression one of shock. She clearly hadn't realized I knew about him. She looked at me, her face saying it all. She had been caught. Come on, Laura. You and Trayvon have been seeing each other for a while now. He just wants to make it official in front of his friends. What? How did you? Listen, after this weekend with your friend, there will be consequences for your decision to spend time with him. Laura tried to soften the blow. Honey, I'm not his girlfriend. Come on, Laura. You've been seeing Trayvon Williams for almost 2 years, and now you're saying you're not his girlfriend? Be realistic. Laura fell silent. I continued, okay, when's this event with your friend? He wants me to go with him on Friday night, and it's just dinner with his friends, like I said. Maybe we should call him and clarify things. No, that's not a good idea. I don't want to bother him. I was growing tired of this conversation. Are you planning to come home after dinner, or are you staying with Trayvon? I was thinking of staying with him overnight, now that you know. Okay, but before you spend the weekend with him, know that this will change everything between us. Laura tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand. I know this is the 21st century, and ideas of fidelity can seem outdated. I know I don't own you and can't tell you what to do, but I have to say, I'm deeply disappointed in you and how you've deceived me. If you don't want to be married to me, have the courage to tell me. Don't sneak around and behave like this. Darling, I love you very much, and our marriage means everything to me. What I have with Trey is just something I need right now. It won't last long, and when it's over, you and I will be the same as always. We will, right? Damn, you're really good at lying to yourself. Well, go ahead. Be with Trey if that's what you want. But don't think I won't make some changes in response. I finished my beer, got up from the table, put the glass in the sink, and left the kitchen. My wife made her choice, now it's my turn to make mine. She looked at me as I walked away. Friday morning, there was a bag of Laura's things at the door. I went into the kitchen, the children were having breakfast, and Laura was drinking her coffee in silence. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down with the kids. I looked at Laura. When do you plan to return? She looked at the floor. Probably around noon on Sunday. Amazing. Friday night dinner turned into a full weekend. Remember the consequences we talked about. Children, let's go. I'll take you to school. Mom will be away, so I'll pick you up today. The children both looked at their mother as if asking where she was going, but Laura didn't say anything. We went out, and that was that. Laura, I have butterflies in my stomach. What have I done? I think I may have made a mistake with Trey, but God, he's amazing. I mean, Rob is great, but Trey is just different. I need him. When Rob told me there would be consequences for my time with Trey, I wasn't quite sure what he meant. Trey says Rob can't do anything. If he tries, he'll be the one to lose. If Rob divorces me, I'll get the kids, the house, and Rob will have to pay for years, at least until the kids graduate from college. I know he won't want that. He won't want to be away from his children. He loves them too much. That means he'll let me do what I want. He has no real choice. Rob, my foolish wife, isn't thinking clearly. I'd never say she's stupid, but what she's doing is. I called my lawyer, Jordan, my new best friend, and told him what was happening. We discussed this possibility before, and he reminded me to stay focused, don't get emotional, don't lose sight of the long-term strategy. This was just one battle, there's a bigger war ahead. So, I stayed the course. On Friday night, While my wonderful wife was with her boyfriend and his friends, I began to set the consequences in motion. I started by moving most of Laura's things from our bedroom into the guest room, which has its own bathroom. It's only a slight inconvenience, but now I'd have the master bedroom all to myself. I don't like to share. Her little prank of spending the weekend with her boyfriend was the last straw. Andy and Gracie were curious why I was moving their mother's things. My response was simple: you can talk to your mom about it when she gets back. She'll explain everything to you. They were too young to understand the concept of cheating and its consequences. I'm not sure their mother understands them either. Laura, Friday started off tense. Rob didn't say a word to me, and we avoided each other before work. I packed a small bag. This was the first time Trey and I would spend the whole night together. I know I told Rob it was just dinner, but it was actually the whole weekend. I won't be home until Sunday afternoon. I guess you could call that a lie. I was nervous all day. Trey came into my office a few times, smiling like a kid on Christmas Eve, excited for the night and the weekend. After work, I went to his apartment, which was nearby. I told him I needed to take a shower and get ready. I asked for some wine to ease my nerves. That night, I had crossed a line, going on a date in public with a man who wasn't my husband. For a moment, I wondered if I was making a mistake. Maybe this was too much. But then I remembered how good Trey makes me feel, and I stopped thinking about it. I put on my little black dress and matching shoes, pulled my hair into a loose bun, and wore the earrings and necklace Rob gave me when Gracie was born. Funny how I still love those pieces. Trey and I went to an upscale restaurant where we were meeting his friends. When we arrived, we went to the private room that had been reserved for us, and there were already a few people there. Introductions were made, and we were offered drinks. I received a lot of looks from his friends, who were mostly around his age, 25. The women looked me up and down. We had dinner, and the wine flowed freely. One of his friends came up to me and mentioned that he and Trey were on the same university swim team. He was also tall and well-built. I think all the alcohol gave him the courage to ask some questions. His name was Jacob. "So, Trey says you and him are together," he began. "I'm not sure what you mean by together," I replied. "Well," he said, "he mentioned that you and he have been together for a while." "Trey and I have worked together for several years now, if that's what you mean," I said. He laughed. "No, I mean you've been sleeping together for a while now. That's what I mean." I looked him straight in the eye and leaned a little closer. "What happens between me and Trey is none of your damn business." He looked a little surprised. "But I'm sure it's your husband's business." Then he turned and left. Apparently, Trey had told his friends that he was sleeping with a married woman. Was I stupid enough to assume he wouldn't tell anyone about this? I felt a little cheap at that moment and sat down. Trey came up to me and said that everyone was going to see one of their friends who had a hot tub. The night was getting long, it was almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was tired, but they all wanted to continue the party. I decided to stay and enjoy the rest of the night. I didn't have a swimsuit, but I quickly learned that they preferred to swim without one. Laura, when I woke up, it was almost noon. My head hurt, and my body ached. Trey was still lying in bed next to me, snoring. I went to the bathroom to pee and found a toothbrush to clean my mouth from last night's dinner and all the wine and liquor I drank. I found headache pills and took 3. We went out to eat, and I was very tired from the late night and intimate. I also started to worry that we might run into someone I knew, who might be interested in who I was with. The rest of the day was filled with food, night, and even more night. On Sunday, I woke up around 10 a.m. We ate a bagel and drank coffee at his apartment, and then I packed my things to go home. It was almost 2 p.m., and I needed to move fast. I planned for the kids and me to not be home when Laura returned, if she ever came back. I had planned a hike after Andy's soccer practice, so I packed sandwiches, sweets, and water. I planned to reward them after the hike with a stop at their favorite fast food restaurant. I took my Nikon camera to take some pictures and let them try it out. I think we all had fun as we walked along the path to the observation deck. Gracie asked where Mom was. I stopped to think about it for a moment. I tried my best not to dwell on it and told her that Mom was helping a friend over the weekend. Gracie asked when Mom would be coming home. I told her it would probably be today, but if Mom wasn't home when we got back, she could call her. That was the end of it. I tried again not to think about the person who was supposed to be my wife, Laura. When I got home, it was obvious that Rob and the kids were gone. I went to our bedroom to unpack my small bag and put my clothes in the wash. When I entered the bedroom, it looked a little different, but I didn't understand what was wrong until I opened the closet door. All my clothes were put away. Damn it. I went to the bathroom, and all my toiletries were gone, too. Crap. I ran to the kids' rooms. Nothing had changed, and then I went to the guest room and found all my things in the closet and all my toiletries in a box on the bed. Crap. I sat on the bed to think about what to do. Rob needs to understand that my dealings with Trey have nothing to do with him. He is completely separate from us and our marriage. I decided to return my things to their places. It took me a while to move everything back, and just as I was finishing around dinner time, I heard the door open and the kids start talking. I went down to the kitchen, and the kids both hugged me and started telling me what a great trip I had missed. They said Rob allowed them to use his expensive Nikon camera and take photos during the hike. Rob told them to go wash up, and he would start cooking dinner. He looked at me as if I were invisible and said nothing. He went to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and began taking out food for dinner. I decided to try to talk to him without the children around. "I saw what you did with my things," I said. "I put everything back in place." "Wonderful," he said with a tone of irritation. "It was just one weekend, Rob. One weekend out of our entire lives." He looked at me with an expression I had rarely seen. "When are you going to see him again?" "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, lowering his voice so the kids wouldn't hear, "when are you going to sleep with him again?" When I didn't answer right away, he turned away from me and said, "That's what I thought. Get lost and leave. Leave me alone. I'll feed the children." I returned to the bedroom to put my things away. While I was there, Gracie came into the room and asked where I had been all weekend. I was a little surprised by her question, so I just told her that I was helping a friend. She looked at me, nodded, and left. After dinner, Laura put the kids to bed, and I went into our bedroom and started moving things around again. I grabbed armfuls of Laura's clothes from the hangers and threw them on the bed in the guest bedroom. I retrieved the box from the hallway and threw all her toiletries into it again. I moved her dresser into the hallway and into the guest bedroom. Then I closed the door to the master bedroom and sat in the chair, trying to remember what Jordan had told me, not to push too hard yet, but to let her know that her decisions and actions have consequences. I didn't care if I had to move her stuff every day. I was determined to do it and to never share a bed with her as long as she wanted to be with another man. If I'm not good enough for her, let her leave me alone. When I finished putting the kids to bed, I knew Rob was moving things around again. I thought he was moving his things, but I was surprised to see that he had put my things on the bed. Crap. I tried to go into the bedroom to talk to him, but he quietly told me through the door to get lost. I needed to figure out what to do to get back into our bed and get my life back to normal. I went to work. I'm an engineer, and I design buildings. I closed the office door to think about what to do next. Crap, why did Laura decide that she wanted another man and not me? What did I do wrong to push her into another guy's arms? Is she going to leave me and the kids? When is she going to leave us? I had a million questions spinning in my head and not a single answer. I decided to use some tactics that being an engineer had taught me: write everything down, take extensive notes, and then organize everything to try to find a solution to the problem. So, I spent the entire morning writing down my thoughts and then rewrote everything at the end into something I thought would help find a solution. I knew that at some point, I would have to face Laura and maybe even Trey. I considered him an opportunist. I was sure he knew that Laura was married and had 2 children, but he did what he did anyway. He didn't care about the harm he was causing to Laura's family, especially her children. I knew that when it came down to it, he would trash it and move on to another woman and victim. I hated people like him. A few weeks later, Laura told Rob that she was spending the weekend with Trey. She said that since he didn't want her, she would go to the man who did. Rob just looked at her like she was a huge piece of dog crap on his shoe. He wanted to get rid of her, but she wanted to return to his life. She wanted to make him jealous of Trey and fight for her, but he didn't. Lately, she had been with Trey almost every weekend and several nights a week. They went to restaurants, drank, and danced with his friends. Some of my friends asked me about my children and what I did with them when I was with Trey. I told them that their father was taking care of them. One of them even asked me for his phone number. Her boyfriend didn't seem to suit her, she said, and she was looking for the best match. I didn't give her Rob's number. Weekends always followed the same pattern: food, parties, and a lot of intimate. When I was done with Trey, I would have to work to get back into good graces. I knew that he was angry with me now, but I knew he loved me and would want me back. I'm still his wife, and I am still the mother of our children. Everything would be just wonderful. A few months later, I did exactly what Jordan advised me to do: remain silent and take notes. I recorded every night and weekend Laura spent with her boyfriend. I wrote down every missed event for the kids, school events, and organized activities. I noted every family event I missed. I wrote it all down, and about once a month, I discussed it with Jordan. At our last meeting, he told me that he was very confident that I would get custody of the children when we went to family court. He has seen other clients fail because they could not provide enough evidence to prove that the cheating spouse was not the best parent for the children. I thought it over and decided I'd had enough. Now was the time to end this farce that was once my marriage to the woman I loved so much that I was willing to take a bullet for her. It's time to tell Laura that she doesn't deserve me anymore. I told Jordan to prepare the documents and arrange for their delivery. I will let her know in advance to avoid the humiliation of having someone come to the house. I chose Sunday for the conversation, when Laura returned from her boyfriend's. The kids were in bed. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and poured a glass of wine for Laura. She looked at me as if I were passing her a glass of poison. "Laura, we need to talk." "Rob, what do you want to talk about?" "I mean, we barely talk." "Well, now we need to talk. I want to talk about us, about our marriage. You remember this, don't you?" I said, holding up the glass. She looked at me like a deer in headlights and took a long sip of the wine I poured for her. "So you've made it very clear what's important to you. I'm not a priority for you, and neither are the children. It's time to move on to the next step and end what our marriage has become." I took a small sip. Laura didn't say anything, so I continued. "You must stay home tomorrow morning." "Why?" "There will be a person who will deliver important documents for you. This is a declaration of divorce. I don't want to be your husband anymore." I took another sip. Laura still didn't say anything. "You've spent enough time with Trayvon Williams over the last year and a half to make it clear that you don't want to be my wife and you don't want to be a mother to Andy and Gracie. I want you to move." "Do you want me to move?" "Yes. This usually happens during a divorce. You can be with Trayvon Williams as long as you want and not have to worry about me or the kids. We can continue living without worrying about you." "Why? Why? Why? Damn it, are you completely stupid? You've been sleeping with your boyfriend since last year and still don't know why I want to get rid of you? Think about it yourself." I tried not to scream, following Jordan's advice, so I took another sip and continued. "We will divide all our assets equally, and the house will be put up for sale. I will have custody of Andy and Gracie, and I will ask that you pay child support and contribute to their education fund. In addition, you can take any furniture from the house except for the children's things." I took another sip. "All of this is outlined in the package of documents that you will receive tomorrow. Take it to the lawyer and have him contact my lawyer. His business card will be in the bag. I don't want to discuss anything else. You've made it clear over the past months what you want. Well, now you can have it." I got up and left. Laura was still sitting at the table. I finished my beer and went to my bedroom. Rob dropped the kids off at school, and I waited in the kitchen for the man who would deliver the documents Rob had talked about last night. I called work and told my boss I needed to take the day off. At exactly 9 a.m., the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw a woman in a sports jacket and jeans. "Laura Brady?" "Yes. Mrs. Paul Brady. May I see your ID to confirm that you are indeed Laura Brady?" Fine, I said, and went to get my purse. I pulled out my driver's license and showed it to her. She took a photo of it and then handed me a large brown envelope. Laura Brady, you've received the documents. She took a few steps back, took a photo of me holding the envelope, and before I could say anything, she walked away to her car outside. Crap. I slowly closed the front door and returned to the kitchen. I needed a glass of water, so I put the envelope on the table and went to get some. I sat down and looked at the envelope, hoping it would disappear. It was the result of my desire to be with Trey and the wonderful feelings he gave me. Was it worth my family and life? Crap. At 10 a.m., I received a call from Jordan's office to let me know that the divorce papers had been delivered to Laura at 9 a.m. They offered to send me a photo confirming the delivery if I wanted. I thanked them but told them it wasn't necessary. This was the first day of my new life. I called the bank where Laura worked around 3 p.m. and asked about her. The secretary said she had taken the day off. I knew what time they finished work, so I went to the bank and waited. I wanted to talk to Trayvon Williams. I found his car and sat on the hood, crossing my arms, waiting for him to appear. Sure enough, around 5:15, I saw him walking toward the car. Then he noticed me. He stopped. I assumed he was very hesitant about whether or not to approach me. Despite being taller and probably 20 pounds heavier, he looked very fit and, at that moment, very scared. As he came closer, I began, "You must be Trayvon Williams." "Who's asking?" "My name is Robert Brady." "You know my wife, Laura Brady?" "Well, I suppose you should, since she's been your girlfriend for a year and a half." "What do you want?" "I came to say that you have one. She is now completely yours." "What? What the hell are you talking about?" "It's simple. You wanted it, you got it. She wants you instead of me, so now she is free to be with you all the time." "That's what I'm talking about," I said. "Dude, I don't want a woman on a permanent basis." "Yes, I like being with her, she's very nice, but I don't need another permanent girlfriend." His words piqued my interest. "Please explain one more time, if possible." "Laura let me know that you two are exclusive." Trayvon suddenly looked guilty, and I instantly realized that he was not only sleeping with Laura, but now it was not my problem. I laughed out loud and stood up from the hood of his shiny BMW. "Well, Trayvon, that's your problem. I hope you have some space in your closet because she has a lot of clothes and shoes." I laughed again and went back to my old Subaru Outback. My next destination was home. Laura, being a banker, would probably quickly transfer money to accounts that I don't have access to. But I beat her to it and transferred half of our money to my account at another bank. I drove home slowly. When I entered the house, I saw the children at the table. They were doing something, probably homework. "Where is Mom?" I asked. Gracie looked at me and said, "I think she's upstairs." "Thank you." I walked up the stairs and went to my bedroom to change clothes. I heard Laura blowing her nose in her bedroom. I intended to ignore her the same way she had been ignoring me and the children for the past few months. I changed and went back to the kitchen to start preparing dinner for us. A few minutes later, Laura came downstairs without saying anything and drove away in her car. I looked at the kids and said, "I think she went to help that friend again." They shrugged their shoulders and continued with their business. Trayvon wasn't responding to my messages, so I drove to his apartment. He let me in but wanted to know why I came. I told him that Rob filed for divorce citing infidelity and that he listed Trey as the person Laura cheated with. Trey simply responded, "What the hell?" and turned away from me, walking into the kitchen and grabbing a beer from the refrigerator. He looked at me and asked, "What do you want me to do?" When I didn't answer right away, he continued, "Your husband found me at the bank today to tell me he was kicking you out. He even asked how much space I have in my closet for your things." I didn't answer him. What should I have said? That we are just sleeping together and that's all? You introduced me to your friends as your girlfriend. Am I your girlfriend or just someone you like to have a night with? What do you want from me? We had a lot of fun, but that's about it, just fun. He paused and then added, "I don't want a wife or girlfriend living with me." "Sorry." "Thanks for nothing, you an idiot," I said, and got up and left. I needed a plan, a lawyer, and help to save my family. Crap. 2 weeks later, my lawyer Jordan was in contact with Laura's lawyer, and we were getting ready to get to the bottom of the matter. Her lawyer, the shark in the blue skirt, suggested we go to family court to sort out the details. The first thing Laura wanted was for us to go to marriage counseling and use it as a way to get to the bottom of what she called a big misunderstanding and mental health episode on her part that led to bad decisions and her cheating. I wasn't sure what kind of mental health episode she was going to claim, but Jordan was pretty sure Laura would claim that she suffered from depression, which made her need to feel wanted. When she didn't get it from me, she became very receptive to the advances of Trayvo Williams, who would be portrayed as an intimate opportunist who wanted to conquer vulnerable women. There might also be a hint of intimate addiction thrown in to further confuse things. Hey, it seemed to work for that famous golfer. Maybe Laura will find something the family court will buy. Who knows? I'm not a psychiatrist, but I realized there was a significant effort being made to convince me that if we went to marriage counseling and Laura got mental health therapy, we could put all of this behind us. Otherwise, the big losers in a divorce would be our children, who would not have both parents with them daily to nurture and guide them. So we started the dance. The judge, a very motherly woman in her 60s, gave Laura the benefit of the doubt based on her mental health claim and ordered a stay of all divorce proceedings until marriage counseling was completed and a report from Laura's mental health therapist was received. Until then, Laura was allowed to stay in our home and, of course, with our children. No other action to divide the property was to be taken until these two things were completed. Jordan knew this would happen and had told me in advance how he thought it would go. We all sat around a conference table rather than in a courtroom, and at the end, I walked out with Jordan to discuss the way forward. His advice: do nothing, go to marriage counseling, and see how it unfolds. He reminded me that I would eventually get my divorce, but it was also that Laura would get custody of the kids, the house, and most of my income to support her. Be patient, and I will get what I want. 4 months later, I went through 12 marriage counseling sessions and laid out everything I knew and wanted. The marriage therapist, another wonderful woman in her 60s with a huge head of white hair, Dr. Snow, an appropriate name, spent many hours discussing our individual needs for recognition and helping us understand that we, as individuals, have complex needs that we often ignore when we've been married for a few years and have kids, careers, and busy lives. I had a pretty clear idea that I was being set up to fall, that I was unconsciously ignoring Laura's needs, essentially forcing her to turn to another man to meet those intimate needs because I couldn't cope. It was all very beautifully phrased, but the blame lay with me, and Laura deserved intimacy with another man. It was all complete nonsense. I took notes from most of the sessions and gave them to Jordan, who planned to bring Dr. Snow into family court at the appropriate time. At one of the sessions, I specifically touched on the topic of what constitutes a modern marriage in the 21st century. I asked, is the promise to renounce all others being kept given the supposed new attitude towards fidelity? Dr. Snow looked very uncomfortable with the question and visibly fidgeted as she tried to answer. She tried to say that some infidelity is acceptable as long as it is agreed upon by both parties, but then it's technically an open marriage. I went back to the question, if one party hides the fact that they are having a night with someone else, is that acceptable? Dr. Snow tried to change the subject by saying that one of the purposes of marriage counseling is to correct the imbalance between the activities of marriage partners. I pressed, is hidden infidelity acceptable behavior? She knew that wasn't the case but tried to deflect by saying our time was up and assigning us homework. Yes, homework. We had to discuss the issue of trust and how we could improve the trust between us. Certainly, Laura, my temporary reprieve was quickly running out, and I was no closer to convincing Rob to end the divorce. We hadn't shared the same bed for many months, and of course, we didn't have an intimate. Marriage counseling was not working, and my individual visits to a psychologist did not result in what my lawyer expected. The doctor's report basically stated that I was not crazy and fully understood what I was doing, but I was acting out of a selfish desire to have a night with a man. The report also stated that I ignored the consequences of my actions until Rob filed for divorce. I'm not suffering from a mental crisis, I'm just stupid. Wonderful. Jordan arranged time with a family judge to begin the process. Until now, there had been no mention of which of us would get custody of the children. For me, this was the most important thing in this divorce. We gathered in the conference room, ready to lay out the case and present my custody plan. First, we called Dr. Snow, a marriage therapist, to report on the results of 12 torturous sessions of nonsense. Jordan asked her to report on the results of the sessions. She went to the judge and gave a brief report that basically amounted to the fact that I was reluctant to share my feelings, and therefore the root causes of our marital problems were not properly addressed. Jordan jumped on this. The judge intervened immediately. "Lawyer, there is no need to stand up in this court to ask questions." Jordan nodded, but I could tell he was eager to continue. "Dr. Snow, let me ask you a question. Did Laura Brady tell you why she felt the need to have Intim on the side?" "Well, it's not such a simple question. You see, human needs are very complex, and what we need to thrive is determined by these complex needs." "So, she wanted intimate with another man?" "Well, yes, but it's not as simple as you make it out to be." "Please tell us how difficult the problem was for Laura Brady." "Well, Laura's needs for self-actualization and development led her to want to go beyond the ordinary existence that her family represented for her. Quick tutorial: self-actualization, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is the highest level of psychological development when personal potential is fully realized after the basic needs of the body and ego are satisfied. Self-actualization was introduced by organismal theorist Kurt Goldstein as a motive for realizing one's full potential. The desire to self-actualize as fully as possible is the basic driving force of self-actualization. Carl Rogers also wrote about the healing power in psychotherapy, the human desire for self-actualization, for the realization of one's potential, for the expression and activation of all the abilities of the body. So, you're saying that Laura was bored with her husband and her life, and this led to a long-term intimate affair with Trayvon Williams? Dr. Snow was a little confused. Jordan glanced at the judge, who was puzzled by both the question and the lack of answer. "Let me rephrase the question, Dr. Snow. Was Laura's method of achieving self-actualization respectful of her husband and children?" "I'm not sure what you mean." "Well, the need for self-actualization doesn't necessarily imply the need for a night with others outside of marriage, does it?" "Oh, no." "So could it have led to a better outcome for Laura if she had directly told Robert about her need for an intimate relationship with Trayvon Williams?" "Again, this should have been between Laura and her husband. Did she ever tell him about her plans to have a night with Trayvon Williams?" "Well, eventually, yes. This was right before she planned to spend a full weekend with Trayvon Williams and his friends, even back when Laura and you were having an intimate regularly." "I guess so." "So Laura hid her relationship with Trayvon Williams for months, over a year, actually. Does this indicate that Laura respects or does not respect her husband?" "Well, it all depends." "Depends on what, Dr. Snow?" "Well, no matter what, Doctor, it is clear to everyone in this room that Laura Brady blatantly disrespected her husband, Robert Brady, and their children, Gracie and Andy. I have no more questions for you at this time." Dr. Snow stood up and looked at the judge, who looked at Laura's lawyer and asked if she had any questions. There were none, so Dr. Snow was allowed to leave but was warned that she might be called back for further testimony. She grabbed her suitcase and hurried out of the room. Laura's reports from a marriage counselor and mental health therapist were of no help to me. I wanted it all to end so I could go home. The judge called a break, and I got up to talk to Rob. I was going to beg him to stop this and go back to being a family. I wanted my children and a normal life back. I knew now that being with Trey, no matter how good it was a mistake. I knew that he and I had no future, so I needed to find a way to save my family. My mother told me many times that I was stupid and that I needed to get on my knees and beg if I wanted any chance of saving my marriage. After the break, Rob's lawyer provided the judge with detailed records of every time he knew I was with Trey, along with every family event and kids' school activities I missed. In this comparison, I didn't look my best. My lawyer tried to argue that even though I spent some time with Trey, I was still a good mother and that the children needed my maternal influence in their lives. The look on the judge's face showed how she felt about this. Rob's lawyer presented the judge with a child care plan and even suggested that I would have a lot of time with the children, but Rob would be the main caregiver. The judge looked at the lawyer and asked if we had any more evidence to help her make a decision. Since we had nothing, the meeting ended, and everyone left. I wanted to talk to Rob, but he quickly left with his lawyer. I was still living at home, so I thought I could talk to him later. I returned home from the family court hearing, gathered the kids, and we went out to eat. They didn't ask where their mother was, and I didn't offer any information about her. I thought she ran to her boyfriend to try to talk to him, but he's been cooling off on Laura lately. I was ready to move on to the final stages of this nightmare. I wanted the judge to approve the settlement plan I proposed and allow me to move on with my life. 2 weeks later, I was back in family court with Jordan, and Laura was here with her lawyer. I really hoped that everything would end today. When the trial was announced, the judge thanked us all for our patience over the past 2 weeks while she reviewed all the documents presented to support our individual positions in this case. It all sounded very formal and unemotional, and I admit that I didn't listen very carefully to what she was saying. Luckily, Jordan was listening because he nudged me and suggested that I pay attention. I was lost in thought, reliving all the trouble Laura had caused by having a night with Trayvon Williams, disrespect, betrayal, ignoring our children. If she wanted another husband, she should have said so 2 years ago, and we could have saved ourselves a lot of heartache. But no, she didn't. She hid her infidelity while putting my health at risk of contracting diseases from Trayvon Williams. A good wife, isn't she? I came back to reality and started listening. I was glad I did. I got almost everything I wanted. The most important thing was child custody, and we could stay in the house. Since I earn more than Laura, I would be primarily responsible for the mortgage, but she would have to pay monthly child support and contribute to the children's education funds. In reality, this isn't a lot of money for her because the judge has ruled that she will have very liberal visitation, which in itself will require expenses. Essentially, I will continue to pay for everything I pay for now, and Laura will have to pay a little for educational funds. I consider this a victory. The judge gave Laura 30 days to find a new place to live and said the divorce would be final on that date. I thanked the judge, who smiled and nodded at me, and then I vigorously shook Jordan's hand and hugged him as a token of gratitude. As I was leaving the meeting room, I stopped specifically to talk to Laura. We haven't spoken in many recent months, except about the kids, the house, or family matters. We need to tell the kids together that you are going to move. When can you do this? She looked at the floor as she replied, "Why not do it this weekend?" Okay. I left it at that and went home. Laura arrived 5 minutes after me, and we actually sat down at the kitchen table. For the first time in a long time, we looked at each other. "So, how do you want to tell the kids that their mom will be living somewhere else?" I added, "Are you going to move in with Trayvon Williams?" Laura's head snapped up to look at me. No, Trayvon. Have you thought about where you want to live? What type of housing, house, apartment, or rental? She exhaled at the thought. No, not really. I think I need to start looking. We were silent for a few minutes. Then Laura asked, "Rob, honey, is there any way at all, that you can forgive me for my stupidity and we can stay married? I will do everything to save my family." I took a sip of my beer. Jesus, Laura, how many days and nights did you spend with Trayvon? Did you ever think when you were with him that this was good for our marriage? I paused and took another sip. Nothing about your desire to be with him has changed, has it? You still want to be in his bed if he would let you. You made your choice, and it wasn't me. I took another sip and finished my beer. Damn, the IPAs are good. I stood up and went to the refrigerator to get another one. Laura was still silent. What do you think it feels like to think that your wife doesn't think you're good enough, that she chose to spend time with another man in his bed, and allowed that man to think he had a wife who put her family first and her priorities? But I didn't have it. I had a wife who was looking for another man for intim, and then I had a wife who exposed it to me. I took a breath, lowered my voice, and added, "So right now, I don't see how you can fix all the crap you've created. You poisoned this well. You have a month to find a place to live." I left. The conversation with the children went about as I expected. Their main concern was whether they would have to move. When I told them that they would not be moving, they looked at their mother, who told them that she would be the one to move. Laura told them that she would still be with them often but would be living in a new house, and they would have a room to sleep in when they were with her. The children looked at me to see if it was true, and when I nodded, they looked at each other. Gracie looked at her brother and then at me and said that their biggest worry was losing friends or going to a different school if they had to move again. I assured them that there would be no move. I saw the relief on their faces. All was good. Laura started looking for an apartment. I thought I'd try to find a place closer to work to cut down on travel and parking costs. Rob offered me any furniture from the house that I would like to take. I noticed that he began to remove things from the house that reminded us of our marriage. Photos of just the two of us before we had kids were taken off the walls. Our large wedding photo was removed from the wall in the family room. It hurt to see them disappear. I didn't know where they went and didn't ask. Trey avoided me at work. I knew that he had a new woman in his life and in his bed. I was yesterday's junk, and they treated me like that. I missed him now. I had nothing. I missed the feeling of Rob. I missed his touch in bed next to me at night. I used to feel safe around him. I haven't felt this way for a long time. I made a deposit for a 2-room apartment in a new building that was about 4 blocks from the bank. There was a problem. It would not be ready to move into until after the divorce was finalized. That night, when I got home, I tried to talk to Rob about possibly extending the time I had to move out. Living in a hotel would be expensive, and I wanted to stay in the house as long as possible. I had to bring Rob back to my bed. This would stop all this nonsense, and we could return to a normal family life. I heard a knock on the bedroom door and realized it was Laura. "What can I do for you?" The door opened a little, and I saw Laura enter the room. First, this attempt to return to my bed was too late. It should have been a long time ago, long before she chose Trayvon Williams. She only wanted me as a safety net to pay the bills and handle all the daily routine things. Secondly, she still looked beautiful without clothes, and I would miss the intimacy we once had. We hadn't shared any intimacy for so long that I put it out of my mind and tried not to think of her as the woman I loved and would do anything for, and whom I liked. It's long since dead and gone. I looked at Laura and rolled over, pulling the blanket over my neck. "Close the door when you leave." I knew she stood there a little longer, then she picked up her clothes, got dressed, and quietly left the room. "Laura, everything is over. Rob doesn't want me. I'm damaged goods." I gave what I should have given to Rob a try. I chose Trey too often. Now Trey doesn't want me. Things got too complicated, and he made it clear that he didn't want me anymore. My boss at the bank mentioned that there was an opening at another branch in town and that I should prepare to work there. When I told her that I was moving to an apartment nearby and that the other branch was on the other side of town, she simply looked at me and replied, "Do you want a job or not?" and left. So, I started looking for an apartment again. When I told Rob that I was being transferred to another unit and needed more time to find a place to live, he just looked at me and said, "It's not my problem. You know when you have to move out," and walked away. I found a new apartment. It wasn't what I wanted, but it meant an easy commute to work and was big enough for the kids to stay with me when it was their time to be with me. The new job was a lateral transfer, not the promotion I wanted, but I had to take it. The people in the new department knew why I was there, and I saw the look some of the women gave me. I heard that Trey got promoted to my old position in my old department. Wonderful. Rob was eager to see me leave. He reminded me daily of how many days were left before I moved. He even offered to help pack the boxes, and we discussed which pieces of furniture I would like to take with me. He began moving things into the garage and storing them there. It was a whole bunch, and he even said he planned to get rid of a few things after I left so he could rethink the decor he wanted for the house. On moving day, I hired a local moving company, 2 guys and a truck, to move my belongings. They arrived promptly at 8 a.m. and pulled up to the garage. After I told them what to load, they were done in less than an hour. Rob even offered to help them. I gave them the address of the apartment building, and they left. I looked around the house and thought about how stupid I was for losing all this, but most importantly, for losing my family. I had to wipe my nose several times. Rob stood back while I looked around the house. He took the kids to school so they were gone, and he took the day off from work so he could be home when I moved out. Consequences are punishment. I finally understood what he meant a few months ago when he told me that my actions had consequences. I put off accepting reality and thought I could do what I wanted and eventually we would get back to normal. I knew that the boredom of family life had led me to believe that I could have fun with Trey and my family would always be there when I needed stability. Ignoring reality has consequences, and now I am facing those consequences. I looked at Rob and was about to try one last time to ask him to forgive me, but he looked at me and said, "Goodbye, Laura. I hope you got what you wanted." Then he turned and closed the garage door. What do you think of our story today? It seems to me that the wife should not have bought the pregnancy protection without telling her husband. What is your impression of the story? Write in the comments. See you in the next video.